Sasha, is it possible to attract money and success through meditations and visualizations? The law of attraction works.
This is a very good question. It is, of course, insanely vast. That is, it is something that has been broadcast in a huge amount of literature in recent decades. And moreover, notice that it is being broadcasted. On one hand, there is such a fervent belief in it. And on the other hand, there is this huge number of people who are always like, oh, again, they are talking about successful success, or they are talking about info gypsies, or they are talking about something else. So there is kind of a reverse construction of this whole reality, right? Once again, this is a very important aspect. You can only deal with this aspect in the following way. In order to understand why certain events occur, the point is not whether visualization can attract, but what the reason is for why a particular event happens. If an event is meant to happen, and for this event to occur, imagine in the future an event must happen, it must happen. This is fate. Imagine there is fate, let's assume, right? This is a separate big topic. Is there fate or not? Well, imagine there is fate, and an event must happen in 10 years. And for this event to happen, in 10 years, a person must attend a certain training where they will perform a specific process in terms of visualizing certain things. And fate leads everything in such a way that these things will happen for that future event to occur. This topic, when we consider causes not in the past but in the future, is very important for understanding time. Most people consider causes in the past. Consider the causes in the future. What are the causes in the future? This is very important. If there is a cause in the future, well, for example, I moved to America 2.5 years ago, and we met 17 years ago. You greatly influenced my move to America. So maybe we met and interacted a lot so that I would move to America. Or I moved to America because we met and interacted a lot. This is fundamentally different. If you start discussing it very broadly, you will see very interesting things. For example, if my move to America was so important, is it possible that your events, why you started moving to America, happened so that I would move to America? If you look at them from this side and see what influenced these things, imagine that it is so. Just assume for a tiny fraction of a percent, well, kind of like a cartoon, then you will see that a lot has happened in life, which you can relate to your destiny, the destinies of the people around you. It has nothing to do with them. You are fulfilling a completely different destiny. After all, that's basically how it is. A person says, what is my purpose? What is my destiny? Well, part of destiny is to participate in another person's destiny or in some event. Everyone likes important events. If I became president here or became some famous person and so on, you would say, ah, well, then I agree that my destiny was to make Alexander Volchkov famous. Well, it's kind of like sort of okay, but sort of not okay. Somehow I like it or don't like it. The question is what to discuss. But if you look in more detail, deeper, you will see how different the causes and effects look. In general, how different they look. Up to the point that children can be born for certain events to occur, and space can do certain things like hiring, firing from work, opening, closing businesses, relationships at home with husband and wife, with parents, the appearance of documents, visas, wars. They can happen so that certain events in the future align and not their own. Therefore, when we consider the question of whether visualization or intention is for the realization of certain things, it is very important to understand how things happen, for what reasons. Because of karma, because of heredity, because of your own choice, because of another person's choice, because this space helps to do it, because it helps the people, the country. Or you just came to a program where there is a person who transmits such energy, he just transmits such energy, he has such power. Everyone thinks that power is in intention, in money, that people who have money have power. This is not so. This is absolutely not so. Well, not at all. The reasons lie in completely different areas. This is the only way to approach this question, to study it, and then make a decision on what to do, how to do it, what changes, what doesn't change, what helps, what doesn't, and what triggers completely different reactions. For example, is it possible to launch a certain intention to really enhance it, to gain something, but lose in another area? Of course it is. It works just as often as if, imagine, you are a mother of two daughters, and you say, I want to build a strong business. You set an intention for this. I tell you, business depends on the number of repetitive actions, on how much you work. And you say, in my business, it's important for me to communicate with clients, for example. And you say, then I will work 16 hours a day. So you increase this, but it interferes elsewhere. It doesn't work like that. Well, basically, it doesn't work like that. Basically, happiness is elsewhere, and relationships with children won't worsen or improve, and so on. But overall, it seems like you will lose in another area. If we talk about energetic intentions, these things often work very often. It's very difficult to track. You must understand well that the world as a whole often has no problem making an exchange for a certain thing. But you don't make any agreements with him. You don't discuss weights in advance. You don't understand the weights of energy.
Let's talk more about the payment for spirituality. Many people believe that spirituality should be free, but at the same time, we see many examples where a session with a great guru or, I don't know, books or their events cost a lot of money, and people have different attitudes towards this. Please share your opinion.
Look, there are always the following aspects: how we perceive spirituality and what we perceive as spirituality. If we perceive spirituality as a material event, there is a material world. Within the material world, there is some spirituality. This is one perception. Another perception is that there is a spiritual world within the spiritual world. There is a material world. And when we say that spirituality is paid or free, obviously in the first case, spirituality is paid, but at least within the material world, it costs time, it costs some action. People call it charity, but they want to get something in return and so on. Some likes, views, subscriptions. Big, small money, what difference does it make? I called it very expensive. People say, well, it's kind of normal, but this is very expensive. It's excessively expensive. It can't cost that much. Why can't it or why can it? Why can't it or why can it? It's a matter of one's perception of what is expensive and what is cheap. When we perceive spirituality this way, it's just our perception within the material world's evaluation of something. Yesterday, we were walking and talking about the Oman Hotel, right? And I tell you, listen, well, such a, of course, expensive, decent hotel, right, in New York, and we opened it, I tell you, look, six, it costs six, right? Sometimes it's 450, the cheapest time, but mostly it costs 5 to 6. This is the situation where you feel it's expensive. For example, it's an expensive hotel for $1,000 or a very expensive hotel for $1,500. For someone, expensive is a hotel for $300. We were walking with Polina yesterday. Polina once worked in a 5-star hotel in Minsk at the reception, and I think you were there. Yes, we went there together after the disco to see her. And a night there cost $300, right? And now some friend of hers was vacationing there. She was posting photos from it. Now it seems absolutely, well, in general, well, you relax. What is this price of $300 for a hotel? Back then, it seemed very expensive. So now $6,000 per day might seem expensive. Well, it's quite decent, yes. But back then, $3,300 seemed unaffordable. That's very important. Back then, it seemed kind of strange and unaffordable and incomprehensible. And therefore, when we discuss whether spirituality is expensive or cheap, you must immediately realize what you want to calculate, how you evaluate it, how you measure it at all. Is it expensive or not? And for whom? Recently, I posted that I have a trip in the summer, and this trip costs $100,000 for a person, a group of 10 people, $100,000 for a week. Okay? And for someone, this is an absolutely strange concept. I don't understand what this is. Is it an apartment in Minsk or what, right? Is this an apartment in Smolensk? What is this? I mean, he can't comprehend with his system what this is, what this even is. How is this possible? What is a week? Come on. So the person doesn't relates to time differently. They don't perceive this time. Well, just different perception. It's a material perception. If we move from the layer where there is a material world with a spiritual aspect to the class where there is a spiritual world with a material aspect, then when we talk about any spiritual event, we will see that it is priceless from the perspective of the material world. We will importantly see that it is priceless. Number one, it is priceless. Why priceless? Because everything that is outside the material world is priceless from the perspective of the material world. There might be some agreements, some gadgets, some actions, but people in the material world do not know how to properly exchange energy, how to calculate it. So, what can be said about the spiritual world? Well, please, how much does it cost to change karmic living? There, give or take a range of 30 years, or some ancestral events, changes in heredity or harmonization of certain energy, flows over 5,000 years. What is this even? What is this? People, in essence, are not even ready to truly look at and pay for what is truly valuable. Silence. The inner state of calm. They went somewhere, traveled, received a certain state, paid money for it, and said, oh, now it means I felt some energy pass through my side. I felt something here too. 4 years later, for example, a person opened a business. It was me who opened it. He has no connection at all, or on the contrary, he felt something here, something happened to him. 4 years later, he closed the business. He has no connection with real events happening from the perspective of the spiritual world. He doesn't understand it at all. He doesn't understand why wars happen, why some countries shrink, some develop, why some economies grow, some shrink, why some people earn money, some don't, why some people have children, some don't have any at all. Someone dies earlier, someone later, someone is sick all their life, someone is not sick, someone feels very happy, someone feels constantly worsening and endless unhappiness. How can a man, as a person, pay money for this? He can't even look at the basic, simple aspects of perception and draw the right conclusions about who truly helped you. Well, I liked, there was a good teacher I had in the 11th grade. Here, a professor did something for me. Just some kind of illusion, or like my parents here were good, so they beat me with a belt, so I learned my lessons. That's why, look who I became. Are you sure you became who you are because you were beaten with a belt? Or are these things not related at all? Because you were beaten with a belt, you became the person who cries every night. And your money, it has a completely different effect. You just don't notice it. Maybe the presence of your wife or husband nearby, just being nearby, or you're living in a certain house or in a certain place, just being there. People don't see these patterns. They don't hear them. They don't want to see them. A person buys an apartment or house based on the renovation, the location, the place. But maybe this location is negative overall, another location is truly worth the money, and being with another person, just their presence is worth money, just their presence. It doesn't matter what they say, and what do people want to buy now? When someone buys something, everyone just asks, how many hours did the person work? How many hours did the massage therapist work? How many hours did the psychotherapist work? What do hours have to do with it? Your living love. And within this life, if something is not truly corrected for you, you lose years or lose the amount of energy with which you could have done something else, something completely serious. You didn't just have a little pain. Some energy didn't transform because you ended up in the wrong hands, with the wrong person, the wrong psychotherapist, the wrong practice, meditation, or you traveled to the wrong place and something transformed incorrectly, went completely in the wrong direction. So how much does anything cost? Everyone is used to evaluating from the perspective of this one is worth it because they have a lot of money, or this one is worth it because they have accumulated watches. This one is worth it because they wrote books. Look at how many people are writing books now. Back then, he already wrote a book. He wrote 3 books. He has already written 6 books, even if he wrote 89 books. Now there are cool models of artificial intelligence. They say, do you want us to write 694 books according to your vocabulary? A lot. And we will just decode each one, yes, each one, fully voice them, lay them out everywhere, and say these are your pictures, draw them, and say these are your pictures drawn. Well, about what? Because that's not the point. From the perspective of energy exchange, it's not a real energy exchange, it's a false energy exchange. The most important thing for you to understand is that true spiritual life and spiritual development are priceless. And when it is priceless, when you understand that there is a spiritual world and within it a material one, then you understand that spiritual development is free, on one hand, completely free. That any of our discussions, conversations, going to the bathroom, eating, working, meditating, practices, anything at all, it's all spiritual life. It doesn't matter if we are filming on camera, planting flowers, or sitting in some special pose, or went to a cave where 687,000 people meditated, and therefore it's an important cave. Yes, maybe they only accumulated negative energy there. It doesn't matter. It was all spiritual. Moreover, spiritual is not necessarily good for a person. Again, not necessarily good. For the spiritual world, your karma is accelerated. You died tomorrow? Well, great. Proper living. For a person, I might not want to do this. I want to live. I want to see. I want to be different. How many such illusions? How many endless illusions? People are in such illusions. They are simply in endless illusions. On the other hand, on one hand, it's free. On the other hand, you need to learn. Today, we are talking a lot about energy exchange. You need to learn to pay for energy correctly and understand correctly. But do you pay for something equally, equivalently at all? But we are in a world where not everything is equivalent. Here, people bought Netflix. I watch movies on Netflix once every 3 months, while someone watches series all day long. But the exchange is not equivalent, averaged, balanced, to take more or less equally from everyone, balanced. So I pay, I don't know, like $20 a month. I should have paid 50 cents, and someone else should have paid $200. A balanced exchange. Often it's absolutely not balanced in our favor. Does this mean that a person will be in balance in any case? It does not mean that. So one can be in a state of imbalance and in the wrong amount of energy, absolutely the wrong amount of energy for a long time. And figuring this out, understanding it, is a very difficult task, a very big task for a person.